good morning, everyone. It's great to see you back after a very busy day yesterday. I won't take too much of your time, but I really wanted to kind of say a few more words. Basically, this was triggered by yesterday's discussion that I think Paul and Doug started on the scaling up these living labs. And I'll just very briefly tell you a little bit about what UBC is up to. And I think the way I describe British Columbia is kind of Greenpeace meets Google. And that's partly because Greenpeace, of course, was founded here. And I love these kind of teasers with numbers because I think that they really are useful to get a sense of the challenge that we are facing. The $50 per ton is the initial tax that British Columbia pioneered, as you heard the minister say. We were the first jurisdiction in North America to have the carbon tax, and that has, of course, triggered a bunch of innovation and technology attraction to this part of the world. The 0.35, maybe Gary might know this number. That's the target, Gary, that we have in terms of we are supposed to only produce 0.35 tons of CO2 per ton of LNG liquefied. And as Gary can tell you, that's a very aggressive target, and it's certainly better than what we do right now. The 56 million, I love this map that I created by just shading British Columbia, Washington State, Oregon, and California, because when you add those jurisdictions together, you have the fourth or fifth largest economy in the world, depending on the year. Same standards, same electricity codes, same language, reasonably good labor force and immigration policies. And that creates a significant market, especially for the types of solutions that we were describing yesterday. The $950 million, that's for Canadian standard, that's a big number, and that's the investment that the federal government has made on the digital supercluster, and UBC is one of the founding members of that thing, and we are hosting some activities on this part of the country. The Clean BC document, you heard the minister speak about that a couple of days ago, and it has targeted funding for specific things associated with the targets that the province has created. And I mentioned to those of you who made it to the tour yesterday that the utility, we have a Crown Corporation monopoly that produces the electricity here in the province, and they have set aside $36 billion of investment to modernize their grid and do a bunch of other things. So, you know, there is a lot going on in this part of the world. I always like to say that if you draw a 100-kilometer circle around Vancouver, you have one of the two key fusion energy companies, two of the key hydrogen fuel cell companies, until recently, two of the major carbon capture companies, until Carbon Engineering went to the US. So there is a lot of opportunity, I think, to scale up and advance some of the things that we are discovering in the labs. Now, about UBC, why is UBC kind of interesting? Part of it is that despite being next to Vancouver, one of Canada's largest cities, we are in many respects a remote community. And that sounds like a funny thing to say after walking around the campus. But if you look at the map, we are separated from the city by a regional park, a forest. We are at the end of the natural gas grid, at the end of the electricity grid. We own and operate those grids on campus. And for all practical purposes, we operate as a small municipality with our own procurement and permitting processes. And that enables us to be a risk-tolerant early adopter of some of these solutions. And more importantly, perhaps, it enables us to connect the development of these solutions on campus at the city scale by connecting those efforts to our research capacity and the brain power that we have on campus. So I won't say much more about that, but I will be very glad to talk to you about this at length. I just wanted to show you a short video of the project that you saw. Can you maybe shut down the sound? Because I think it shows you why this is important. So because we have this ability of building things and doing things that other municipalities perhaps wouldn't dare to touch, we can take some risks in terms of what we do on campus. And the project that you saw yesterday, I talked about the fact that cars and parking buildings are two of the most unglamorous and underutilized assets anywhere in the world. But if you start combining them in different ways and making them smart, you can actually create a good service and a revenue stream and address a climate challenge with existing infrastructure. So you didn't see this because we haven't quite finished building the solar array, but we are building a solar plant on the roof. And as I mentioned yesterday, that's not because solar energy makes a lot of sense in cloudy British Columbia with electricity prices of 4 to 6 cents a kilowatt hour, but because the performance and cost data for solar technologies are robust, mature, and reliable. So you can create, accurate and reliable techno-economic models to create digital twins of these things and then localize their effectiveness or their viability as business cases in other parts of the world. We are using some of that electricity to produce the hydrogen that you saw yesterday. We have a solid state electrolyzer. And I didn't talk about this, but the other claim to fame that these technologies have is that electrolyzers will start to require very large amounts of power, gigawatt-sized power requirements. If we couple electrolyzers with renewable electricity, which is very intermittent and is not always available, you can use the connection to hydrogen to do both energy storage, but more imminently and more, interestingly perhaps for data centers, you can clean the power up because data centers require very clean, very reliable. The variation in frequency is plus or minus 0.1 hertz that they can tolerate. And electrolyzers and electrochemical technologies can be used to provide some buffering. Anyway, there's all kinds of other business cases, hydrogen injection into the natural gas grid, both to decarbonize the natural gas use, but also to use an existing gigantic storage vessel that's already on the ground to store renewable electricity in the form of hydrogen. Maybe let's go to the next slide. Yes, sir. I don't want to take too much time. I'll be happy to talk to you more about this. So this was the project that you saw yesterday. Now, it has all these functions that will help the operation of the campus, but the idea is not to be a refueling station or a car garage or a solar plant. The idea is to create a research platform to attract the right partnerships to accelerate the innovation in the interstitial, the adjacent technologies, so EVs to hydrogen, electrolyzers to renewables. There will be a lot of innovation required in those areas. And even before the project has been completed, we have already effectively used it to create a new company. We identified the generation of hydrogen as a key problem, and we looked at several technologies. Gary, you will again like this because we realized that Canada has a huge challenge in pivoting away from its oil and gas industry. We have, as the minister said on a couple of days ago, we have significant amounts of natural gas. So can we make hydrogen from natural gas without CO2? And that was the challenge that we posed to the research teams. And using this living lab model, we were able to go from idea to demonstration plant in 5 years with $10 million of non-diluted capital investment. And that is very fast for a startup, let alone for a university project. And I will be happy to talk to you about that. So I was saying to Amanda, I wish I could show you the video of the plan, but it's under embargo because we have an announcement to make in the coming months. So next slide, please. And this is my last slide. So beyond the campus living labs, we have extrapolated this model to other jurisdictions. And one of the living labs that we did was actually in collaboration with Carbon Engineering, the direct air capture company, in a jurisdiction about 2 hours north of Vancouver, the town of Squamish, and that's a First Nation center. And as I was saying to Johnny, after this couple of projects, if I needed any more convincing, I am now convinced that the technology is the simplest part of these grand climatic challenges. The really challenging part is how do we talk to one another? The engagement mechanisms that are required to get an idea from a lab or an innovation center to the real world. In the case of Squamish, the project was about building a pilot plant for direct air capture, but also couple it with a synthetic fuel production. And the idea is very simple, electrochemically perhaps, not perhaps financially, but you take carbon dioxide from the air, you make hydrogen with an electrolyzer, and then you use electro and thermochemistry to make synthetic fuels that can be directly used in existing refueling and transportation infrastructure without any new infrastructure requirements. And that we did that, but to me, that was the interesting geeky, technology part. The more satisfying part was the fact that we were able to bring the First Nation leadership, the municipal government, the provincial government, the federal government, a couple of industries, and the developer that was looking at developing the entire site together to work on this project. And I learned a lot of lessons in the process, but I think it can be done. Having that experience, we translated this model to our neighboring province in Alberta, and I wish I could show you the video because we have built that pilot plant that you see in the picture, and that has recently, we had the Carbon Hydrogen Congress in Edmonton last week or the week before, and the site, which is controlled and developed by ATCO, a Canadian company in the oil and gas sector, just received an award just as a demonstration site. So, I think universities have a key role to play. The project in Squamish, I won't take any of the credit. We were just the research partner. Most of the work and the leadership was local and with the carbon engineering company. And same thing with ATCO. They have been managing a lot of the permitting and helping us with the environmental assessments and so on. But we were a key partner to enable some of these projects to get started. And one of the most important contributions that I think universities can make is that by virtue of being a research entity, we can activate significant federal funding mechanisms that can alleviate the costs and the risks associated with building these big capital projects.